Well, welcome to this episode of Chakmah Choter on the YAHOWAH blog. Yes, you caught me. I was taking in the view. Off my left shoulder is the shimmering Caribbean Sea as I gaze through the palm trees over the ocean and to an adjacent island. It is truly a inspiring place to come and speak to you. And also off to my left and a beautiful white leather chair is my lioness with her
Cub.
her cub. This is Leia with Wookie. And we're going to continue to tell a story that is very seldom considered. I would dare say that in the 3,400 and almost 70 years since this was experienced and revealed, this is the first time that it has been presented prophetically and understood as to what were the implications in Numbers 11 of Yahweh speaking so harshly about the children.
The scandalous family secret.
Yeah, the scandalous family secret. Yes,
it's out, kids.
It's not much.
It's out.
It really should not have been a secret, but it has been kept as a secret. Yahweh didn't much like Jews. Yeah, you heard that correctly. He used every derogatory term in the Hebrew lexicon to say they are reprehensible, they are annoying, they're reprobates, they are appalling, and I'm disgusted by them.
Oh, so we're not talking to our families for the same reasons.
Yeah.
Got
and
it.
Then he went on to reveal that he wasn't alone in his disgust, that Moshe came to the same conclusion. In fact,
had a complete meltdown.
Well, Yahweh was out burning everything up around the enclave just to keep him from torching his people. And Moshe, in the midst of it, just had a complete meltdown, as Leah has said. He told Yahweh that the job you've asked me to do is impossible. No one can do it. These people are obnoxious. They're irascible. They are
insolent,
condescending, insolent. They are everything that you and I have discussed about them. They can't be led. They can't be reached. They cannot be reasoned with. They have no interest in being in a relationship with you. They're far too fixated on their own priorities, their religion, their politics, their customs, their themselves. That's all they care about. And so, God, you just might as well kill me because I can't do this job. I don't want this job. I can't do this job. And from that point on, both Yahweh and Moshe just went through the paces because
mission impossible.
Jews were impossible. And this is the family secret. That God himself gave up on his people, and he gave up on them 3 days out of Towrah. And that as bad as it was at that time, it only got worse when Moshe's sister and brother claimed that they also spoke for God. And God says, the hell you do? No.
Huge mistake.
Yeah, huge mistake. Which means that Talmud is a huge mistake. It means the Christian New Testament. Huge mistake. Yeah. The Quran. You can't even call the Quran a mistake. It's just revolting from beginning to end.
It's a menstrual rag.
God says, no, you don't. When somebody speaks for me, it's because they respond to me. It's because they answer me. And it's only one person at a time. And at this time, it's Moshe, because his response to me was so far beyond everyone else's, that he is my guy and no one else. That's what God said.
Literally, that Moshe was his mouth. Yeah. They spoke mouth to mouth. Yeah.
Before we proceed here, it is interesting to note, and I think it's important for you to know, that Well, Yahweh and Moshe both gave up on Israel. That God did not infer in any way that he wouldn't resolve that. But he did say that his resolution for it would be through two individuals, that he himself is not going to engage to resolve this family fracture, but that he had two men, one he called Eldod, which means God's beloved. This would be Dod, David, the chosen one of Yahweh, the Messiah, the King, the very Son of God, his Bakor, firstborn, Eldod. And the other was Midod, which means this is an individual that will come out of the sea. He'll be a Gentile, someone who will be associated with massive amounts of waters, both as a source of life and as a solvent for cleansing, which is the purpose of the red heifer and the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah on Towrah, 99 months from now. And that he will be serving Dod. He will be the very hand and the influence that leads God's people back to Dod.
Hey, honey, what's out that window? A bunch of water, isn't it? We are surrounded by water. This man lives in an island in the middle of the water.
It is true. And we see the waves of the Mem upon the sea. The sea representing Goyim, where the land represents Jews. And that may be difficult for you to understand, and that you now have God saying, it's through these two people and my infusion of the Spirit, my Ruach within them, that will endure forever and will emerge from the very tabernacle, this restoring witness to the eternal testimony regarding the meeting times that God has established at their prescribed moment in time. That why would it be the most Yehud of all Yehud? The man who is literally the exemplar of Yisrael and of the covenant. Why would he have a partner? His name's first, of course, because he is the greater luminary. Why would his partner, Midod, be associated with him? Why would he be from the sea? Why would he be the very hand of Dod? And the reason for that is that when Yisrael, when you turned on God, when you became irascible and you became so obnoxious that you pushed God away, told him to go away, shut up, never, you didn't want to hear him again, you didn't want to see him again. When you did that, what you did is you opened up the opportunity to participate in the covenant with people who are willing to listen, regardless of their ethnicity. And so this individual, known here as Midod, is reaching out on behalf of Dod and Yahweh to a broad audience. Includes Yehudim that are willing to listen, Israelites who are willing to listen, but also to Goyim. And it is because the vacancy that you have created, which has become an opportunity. So this was God's solution to the fractured family. And he is now counting on Midod, reintroducing the importance of Eldod to Yehudim, to Israelites, and to Goyim, so that the family fracture is resolved. And that a number will be resolved prior to the Shabuah harvest, 11 months from now, and then prior to the Towrah gleaning, which is 99 months from now. Of course, then on the Shabat of Towrah, in year 6000 Yah, 33 CE, we'll have the sacrifice of the red heifer in this magnificent flow, a cascade of water dancing off the Temple Mount, with the flames soaring to heaven as Eliah performs as the master of ceremony, and God ignites these flames to cleanse and purge the adulterous woman that has become Yisrael, so that she can be betrothed to her returning Messiah and King, David. This is the opportunity that you have, whether you're Goyim or whether you are a Yisraelite.
So you mean that Yahweh just hung an open house sign outside the door?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
He did. He has an open house sign across on the door, and that door was opened by a rather important individual. It happens to be Eldad, the beloved of Yahweh. He opened that door on Passover, although not a single person prior to my recognition of it acknowledged that Dod is the one who opened that door. And he's the one who created the welcome mat so that we could be perfected by carrying our guilt into Sheol on matzah. So he fulfilled Pesach and matzah so that we could enter through that door as the very children of God on Bikurim. This is the seriousness of God's proposal and his plan. And prior to Yahweh enabling Dod to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, and me to recognize that he did and to share this reality with the world, no one would have benefited from it. So that is why we're here.
Now, there's just one problem. There's this phantom, this creepy guy named Jesus standing in the way of Jews understanding this profound truth.
Yeah, it's worse than just a creepy guy because Jesus never existed. And I am also the first to recognize this and to prove it, that Jesus never existed. He is nothing but a fictitious character that was based on off of Dod. He is a product of identity theft of the actual Messiah and Son of God, our King and our Savior, the chosen one and beloved of Yahweh, mixed with some Dionysus because, Dod wasn't enough. Paul wanted to have a dying and resurrecting God-man, and so he brought in a bunch of Dionysus BS as well. And I wouldn't care about that lie if it were not for the fact that Paul, trained as a rabbi, misappropriated the testimony of Yahweh and of Dod to rob Dod of all that he has achieved and all that he has said and done, and ascribe it to a myth.
All to confuse.
Oh, yeah, all to lead people.
And this is an ongoing criminal enterprise called Christianity based on identity theft, based on oppressing people with a lie, an outright lie that has confused even the smartest of them. Jesus is a creep.
When I first met Leah online, 18 years ago, she was always feisty. She's a feisty lioness. And she had read my books, and we had come to an understanding of who I am and why I'm here and who she is in this relationship. Although we really just had an intellectual relationship with words for the first 10 years that we were communicating. I'd never even seen a picture of her. If I had, I probably would have moved to the islands. But nonetheless, I have now subsequently moved to the islands, but she came with me on my boat. One of the things that she would say that always annoyed me is I killed Jesus and I would do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, why just irritate people? But now we are to the point where, while it is a little difficult to actually slay a myth, the very fact that we are annihilating the myth of Jesus, and we would do it over and over again, and are doing it over and over again, does speak volumes to this. The most appalling, disgusting, revolting, blasphemous lie, criminal lie in the world,
egregious,
is Jesus Christ. Yeah. It's not just a mistake. It's a purposeful fraud to rob God's chosen one, his beloved Son, our Messiah and King, of his due, and to ascribe it to a complete counterfeit. God is exceedingly angry. It's unforgivable.
And not only that, it's really disgusting. You have once a year these people going to cut down pine trees, an Asherah tree, to stuff it in their house and shove a guy named Satan Claus down the chimney to give your kids presents. It's so it's vile.
Well, even in Yirmiyah, he says that this cult of death would go out and cut down a tree as if it was this living entity and bring it into their homes. This sign of taking something that was alive and making it dead, and festooning it with all manner of ornamentation,
Gold and silver,
and just how stupid this this tree was of these twisted individuals. And Paul himself of Shaul, 666 years before Paul would write his first letter, Yahweh said that Shaul, Paul, is the plague of death, which means that Christianity is a pandemic disease.
The father of lies, the son of evil.
A wide cross-section of people. And so we are here to
kill Jesus.
To kill that death. It is essential to our purpose, so that you can come to appreciate the truth, because the truth is profound. And unless you get rid of the BS, it's very difficult to appreciate the truth. And the truth is, there was no Jesus. And the truth is, there really is a Dode to David. His name is Dode. It is not actually David. It's Deleth, Deleth would be pronounced Dode. It is written Dode 1,000 times. And it is the second most common name in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. The most, of course, is Yahweh with 7,000 iterations. Third would be Moshe, although if you consider all of the titles that Yada has been given, he would come in second after Dode. This is God's story. And if you want to pretend that Paul, who admitted to being demon-possessed, who wrote stories that were so filled with contradictions and logical fallacies that there's just really no basis for them in any rational or informed mind, and you choose to believe him over Yahweh, then that's your fault. I really don't give a crap. Yeah, God doesn't give a crap either. You can believe whatever you want to do. Yes. But the moment you deny that Dode is the actual Messiah, the actual Son of God, the one who came in 33 CE, year 4000 Yah, as he had promised, and was crucified to fulfill Passover, and then fulfilled Matzah and Bakorim exactly as he himself foretold, then you become my enemy, because you're God's enemy and you're the enemy of my king.
Yeah. I'm going to add to that. Yahweh says in Mizmor 89, if not Dode, then I'm a liar. Mm-hmm. Putting it back. So I'm going to say one other thing, and maybe someone has said this before, perhaps not, but this is my, call it opinion. I pretty much think it's fact. But all religion, without exception, is a criminal organization or entity based on delusions.
Yes. Taking people away from Yahweh.
All religions, even yours.
There is, however, a religion that God despises more than Christianity, even though he called Paul and Christianity the plague of death for what they have done to rob billions of people of what his son achieved. And it's a deliberate fraud to rob God's son, Dode, of his accolades and his achievements, and to ascribe them to a myth, and even to rob God of his name and his people of the promises and their inheritance that he has offered to them. It is nothing. Christianity is nothing but a criminal enterprise.
Whoa. They didn't just erase his name. They exchanged it for that of the enemy.
Oh, yeah.
Baal means Lord.
Yeah, well.
And Lord is
they replaced
the very
Yahweh's name
antithesis to Yahweh.
with Jesus.
Yeah.
It is so reprehensible that God even quivers as he contemplates not only the idiocy of it, but the disrespect it shows for him. Christianity is a criminal enterprise based on disrespecting Yahweh, his chosen one, his son, and his people, and his testimony and his Torah. But there is a religion God hates more than Christianity.
Ooh.
So be careful,
Do tell.
Judaism.
Yes, because of its vile disregard for anything.
Well, it is Judaism that
truthful.
created Paul. Without Judaism, Paul's not a rabbi. He is not trained to do what he did. He could not have written those 14 letters denouncing the Torah and robbing Dowd to create the myth of Jesus if it were not for his rabbinic training. The rabbinic training is what caused Paul to be Paul and to write the Christian New Testament. And worse, when
Much worse.
Dowd did exactly as he said he was going to do in countless prophecies, detailed expressions of exactly when he was going to arrive and what Moed Mikra he was going to fulfill and how it would be done. And when it happened exactly that way, and God's people who could read these texts, who had copies of these texts, did not recognize him. And in fact, went off and created a religion that specifically is designed to deny him as the Son of God, as their Messiah, as their returning King, and as their Savior. God became even more disgusted at Judaism. And they did the same thing. Rather than accept Dowd as their Messiah, they foisted another false Messiah, Bar Kokhba, under which Israel has its appointed star. And so, that Judaism is worse. And to be a proponent of Judaism as a Jew, you have to be Meshuggah. You absolutely have to be insane. What did Rabbi Akiva do? First of all, he got a whole bunch of followers to be loyal to him. And what happened to them? They all died. They all died. Then what did he do? He brought Hadrian's wrath upon Judea by foisting a false Messiah. He knew what time it was. He knew what year 4000 Yah was. He knew in 4000 Yah the Messiah was going to arrive, and he knew that Jews missed it. And so to capitalize on all those prophecies, he came up with a false Messiah, warlord, Bar Kokhba, the son of a star. And he led a rebellion against Rome. And what happened? He brought the wrath of Rome upon Judea. And that wrath of Rome not only crucified hundreds of thousands of Jews and created the diaspora so the Jews would live as veritable slaves, dehumanized by the Christian religion that he ignited by his passion against it, as opposed to simply telling the truth that David is the Messiah, not Iusu Christou. And that led to the Holocaust. And then when Hadrian was tormenting Jews because of this rebellion that Akiba caused, he renamed the land Palestine, which is the curse that Jews are now struggling against.
I'll even give a modern day parallel.
And so here's the father of your religion. And he had a false Messiah. He lied to you. All of his disciples died. What clue would you get from that? That the people were tormented because of his message. You were rooted out of the land. The diaspora created. And this is the father of rabbinic Judaism? Are you out of your minds?
And not just a few thousands of his adherents died. But I'll even draw a modern day parallel.
35,000.
Under the modern flag or banner of Israel that they have lifted up of their king, which is Bar Kokhba, obviously, they are now making war with Babylon.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
and they have since incited the world against them.
Yeah. So this is the audience that we are attempting to awaken. It's really interesting. We talked about this morning. Yahowah sort of, I use the term, lured me into this. You used the term prepared me for this because he started, we're going to begin by repudiating Islam.
The swamp.
And I had smart enough at that point to recognize that no one could survive that anybody that excoriated Allah, Muhammad, and the Quran and Islam didn't live very long.
Hardly.
And so that was how we were going to begin, which I said, all right, well, if we're going to do that, then I've got some requests here of you. And little did I know that was just preparation. You know, if you're willing to go down in hell and fight the good fight against Islam to protect my people from the onslaught of this savage religion, then you are going to be tough enough. You're going to understand the enemy well enough to fight the hardest battle that has ever been fought, a battle that God himself failed, a battle that Moshe failed, a battle that Dode had failed. And I'm going to put you in a position where you and those that I bring to support you are going to prevail. And that is to get my people to stop being so belligerent and obnoxious, to cause them to stop yabbering and praying and pretending that they are my people, and just to shut up and listen long enough to recognize that I am not Hashem, that I'm not G-D, that I am Yahowah. And until you accept that I am Yahowah, we will have no relationship. And until you recognize that you did yourselves and the world a great disservice by not recognizing the arrival of Dode in his second of three lives, my beloved son, my chosen one, your savior, the former and returning king, until you accept that, we're going to be estranged. And you can fight whatever war you want to fight, but I'm not there with you. I'm going to sit it out until you return. And I've given this fellow that responsibility.
I like your analogy earlier when you were talking about mucking out Sheol. I think it's true. I think it's very true. I think we are making Sheol ready for those who dare to receive it.
Yeah, you have to spend 5 years mucking out Sheol before we'll begin mucking out Judaism. So I had to expose Allah and Muhammad, and then I had to expose the rabbis and those who believe them. And I'm going to tell you that while the Muslims are belligerent, they're deadly, they're vicious. I mean, I've had thousands of death threats, and I have never seen a Muslim yet that responded intelligently, politely, rationally, as an informed individual who wanted to learn the truth. Now, while many, many people who were marginal Muslims have read Prophet of Doom and now Goddamn Religion and have ceased to be Muslims, I mean, many, many thousands and thousands, countless thousands, perhaps
especially
millions
in Iran,
around the world. Yeah, especially in Iran. The realization is that Jews, on behalf of Judaism, are more obnoxious than are Muslims supporting the death cult that is Islam.
I was going to say that rabbis are just imams in different clothing.
Well, the rabbi, the fact of the matter is, and I've said this many times, and it's you need to know it. The rabbis are Islam. Muhammad failed completely as a religious leader. He didn't even have 5 followers left. And what was Petra, where the Kaaba was. He was just totally and completely incompetent. He had based the Quran on the never-ending argument, where everybody that knew him said, you're nothing but a demon-possessed fraud, a complete charlatan that is stealing the religious lore of other people. And that's all he had going for him in Petra around the Kaaba. And he was ultimately laughed out of Kaabaville in shame because of this never-ending argument. The fact that when he threatened to slaughter his people for mocking him, they approached him with the idolatrous indulgence, where Muhammad accepted their gods and incorporated them into his religion. And he did so for sex, power, and money. And then when the only really steadfast follower he had, Abu Bakr, who had provided him with his sex toy, when Muhammad was 66, he jumped in bed with Abu Bakr's daughter, who was 6 years old at the time, said, I'm not going to follow you anymore if you're going to have a pagan religion with all of these goddesses, which were already incorporated now into the Quran. You can read their names a lot, Al-Uzza and Manat. The answer that Muhammad provided for how he slipped up and included the three goddesses of the Kaaba, who all outranked Allah in the Kaaba by a considerable amount. Their rocks were bigger than his. He said that he spoke on behalf of Satan, and in fact, all of Allah's messengers speak on behalf of Satan. It's called the Satanic Verses. Perhaps you've heard of it, and the 33rd Surah. Then you move from the idolatrous indulgence, which Muhammad accepted and then reneged upon, and then the satanic verse excuse. It gets even worse, because after he did all of that, Muhammad said, I need to get out of Dodge because everybody is laughing at me and mocking me. And then he had his wild ass ride on El Barak, the donk mule with wings. And he flew from Kaabaville, which was in Petra, up to a place a city he didn't even know the name. It is assumed to be Jerusalem, where he met in the temple, which he wasn't smart enough to know had been destroyed 600 years earlier, to meet with all the Jewish big shots, which he did not know, none of which were alive at the time. And led them in a Islamic prostration prayer, not knowing that Yahowah, the actual God of not only the Jews but of humankind, despises prayer and bowing down. And then after embarrassing himself with all of that, he and his donk mule leap up to heaven, but you can't get to heaven, obviously, from the Kaaba. You have to go to the Temple Mount to get to heaven. But right in the way to heaven is hell. And so he visits hell first, and there he finds that hell is filled with women who are hung by their breasts by meat hooks because they didn't appreciate the abuse they received from their husbands. And from there, he has a lustful affair with his adopted son's wife, which would be incest. And then he makes it up to Allah, who reveals nothing other than he demands that humankind bow down to him 50 times a day. This is the idiocy of it. And after the night's journey with the donk mule, Muhammad, which he never actually left his bed, of course, during that night, and now she was probably 9 years old, sex toy, attests to that, and begged him not to tell the story because everybody would mock him. They mocked him right out of Kaabaville, Petra. And he had to solicit other people to take him in, and everybody that he tried to solicit mocked him even more mercilessly. So he found 20 pagans that were off on some sojourn, and he told them that he was the messenger of God. And they said, well, that the Jews, the 30,000 Jews in Yathrib, where they had hailed from, talk about this messenger of God that is the Messiah that's going to come. He said, yeah, that's me. I'm a Messiah. And they said, well, wow, then they'll be really happy to see you if you're the Messiah. Well, what do you want? And he said, well, this is what I want. This is the deal. I want you to steal and kill for me. And if you steal and kill for me, slaughter for me, then if you die, my God is going to reward you with virgins in paradise. And if you succeed, you get to keep 80% of what you steal. And I'm going to create a religion where stealing is lawful and good. And by the way, you get to rape the women and enslave the children. So it's going to be really fun. That's what we're going to do. And so we then have the Pledge of Aqaba, where the first 20 to convert to Islam pledge to wage war against all mankind. That's the Pledge of Aqaba. We pledge to wage war against all mankind. That's the first day of the first era of the first day of the Islamic era. It begins right then with the Pledge of Aqaba. Muhammad goes into Yathrib, this largest town in Arabia at the time. It was a very productive date farm community. 3/4 of the population was Jewish. And he begins to assert himself as first impoverished so that the Jews provide housing for him and loans for him. And then he complains when the Jews say, well, you got to make some payment. You got to have some effort. You got to go to work so you can actually make some payment on those loans. And Muhammad doesn't much like that. So he sends out a caravan to rob his own people from Petra, from Kabaville, so he can pay the debt. And he runs out of material for his Quran. Just flat out runs out. Got nothing more to say. And so he begins to purchase Talmud readings from the rabbis. And the rabbis willfully will make a buck to sell Muhammad Talmud readings, which he then claimed came from Allah, and he twisted them to suit his situation. And yet their stories, you can read, they're directly from the Talmud. That's how the Quran became a religious book. Prior to then, nothing. And it became a religious book based upon the Talmud recitals that rabbis in Yathrib sold to Muhammad. And then when the rabbis laughed at him for twisting those stories to suit his situation and claiming that they came from Allah, when in fact they held the receipts, Muhammad, as a psychopath, did what all psychopaths do. He not only threatened to slaughter and demeaned those Jews and the rabbis, he did kill them. He wiped them out, perpetrated genocide. So if you want to know why Muslims to this day try to kill you, why 10/7 happened, it's because rabbis empowered Muhammad to create a religious Quran as opposed to simply be the head of a criminal enterprise. And if it were not for your rabbis, not only wouldn't Christianity exist, Islam wouldn't exist, Judaism wouldn't exist, and you'd be living in perfect bliss with Yahowah, and you'd have no enemies. That's what the rabbis have done to you, and yet you remain loyal to them. That's insane.
Sure is. Hey, I love your story. Condensed a whole lot of history into one quick snippet. But we have forgotten that Muhammad had a wife. Her name was Kadia, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Wasn't
she died long before he left.
Wasn't she
The
Jewish?
Kaaba. Well, no, I don't think she was Jewish. Muhammad was likely Jewish. His mother and father were both from Yathrib. 3/4 of the population of Yathrib was Jewish. She had enough wherewithal to send him off so that he would be nursed by a paid nurse, which means so it means that his mother and father were not only from Yathrib, but they were wealthy, which means they were Jewish. And when you listen to the fact of his actual given name, which is a Hebrew name, the fact that his tribe is the
Koresh, which are a breakaway tribe from the Hashemite tribe.
Yeah.
Who uses the term Hashem?
Yeah.
I ask.
Yes, and so Beni Hashem is another name for them. It's all Jewish names, so it's obvious. And the Quran is actually bastardized Hebrew, so it's really obvious that Muhammad was Jewish.
Furthermore, the DNA results of the royal family are public knowledge.
Yeah, they're Jewish.
All
right. So I want you to know that God is disgusted at his people today because of their religiosity, as he was on this day. So of the person who represented religion more than any other among the children of the Exodus was Aaron, and Moshe's brother. And it now was his sister that was making this claim that we too speak for Yahowah.
Well, that sounds familiar.
Then Yahweh said to them, "It is imperative that you both choose to listen. You should elect of your own free will to hear." Called imperative. with a sense of urgency and intensity to the tough and very raw nature of my words. We don't very often get a statement like this, but it is God saying that not only is it imperative you listen, but what I'm going to tell you is intense, tough, raw. So God is as angry as he could possibly be. This is Bob Midbar in the wilderness, Numbers 12:6.
But you'll see, even in his anger, Yahweh is quite restrained.
So this is not a pleasant meeting,
No.
nor is there any way to spin it into a happy moment.
This is the last thing you want to hear from Yah.
Yahweh was exceedingly upset that Miriam and Aaron were being presumptuous and self-serving. And while this clearly troubled the Almighty, what's worse is that theirs has become a prevalent position, with the religious and political claiming that they too speak for God. Paul claimed it, as did Peter, Mark, Luke, and others, creating a vastly inferior and wholly contradictory Christian New Testament. Rabbis in Judaism exist based upon this exact same proposition, creating their Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds and their Zohar.
I too speak for God.
So does Islam.
Mm.
Well, in the case of the Talmud, they don't speak for God, they replace God.
True.
Their arguments prevail over God's.
Mm-hmm.
Akiba's proposition was that because there's free will, therefore there must be the opportunity for the majority to rule. And so what he opined was, if a group of 3, 4, 5 rabbis have one opinion and God has another, that by the sheer quantity of those that have the ulterior position, the rabbinical opinion is correct.
And now we know why Aaron's called what he's called.
He's called the adversarial
Alternative.
Therefore, with so much having been lost as a result of the self-aggrandizing, often psychotic and typically intrusive and domineering approach of the religious, the political, and the conspiratorial, making this claim, as they do all the way to this day, Yahweh wanted his people to be aware of his position. And it was very similar to, remember when Abraham said, I don't have an heir, so let's let Ishmael be the heir to the covenant.
Yeah, I was like, no.
God said, hell no. Well, I'm not sure it was hell no, but absolutely not. Under no circumstances, no. Well, his answer here was the same. No. To prevail with Moshe, who was always reluctant and now significantly impaired based upon the breakdown just the prior day, God would have to silence and ostracize those who would seek to speak over him, to replace him as a voice, just as the oral Torah does. It speaks over him. It replaces him. There is one God with one name, one Torah, one covenant, one purpose, and he speaks through one person at a time. And he does this to minimize rivalries and confusion. At that time, it was Moshe. At another time, it was through Yeshua, Ben Nun, Moshe's successor. And thereafter, it was with a fellow named Shamuel. He listens to God.
Yahweh chooses. You don't get to choose.
And then it was through David. And then he had a number of prophets following Dod. And today, because Israel abandoned their relationship with God, it's with me. And, I have just left a morning of translating Isaiah 56. I suggested that I was doing that in our program last night. And what it says is so dramatic, so profoundly important in this role that God has asked me to play on behalf of his people, that I don't really give a hoot whether you think it's true or not. Don't really care.
Irrelevant.
I know what God said, and he's emphatic. And at this time, the only way back to him is with my leading. You either listen to what I have to say on behalf of Yahowah and on behalf of Dod, his chosen one, or there's no entrance to heaven. That's how serious God is about this. And he's very clear as well that he has appointed a team of people to support what I am sharing with you, just as he did with the 70 to support Moshe and to lessen the burden. But there's only one who actually represents Yahowah.
So you mean there is no walking alone on your own little path?
No.
Oh.
Just as there is no Torah of Aaron. There is no Torah of Miriam.
No.
There's no Torah of the rabbis.
No.
There are no divinely inspired pronouncements pertaining to a G-D or a Hashem, who is, as this breakaway cult would say, is bisexual with mommy issues, or who is schizophrenic with multiple personalities and conflicting messages and differing messengers. Therefore, to nip notions to the contrary in the bud, Yahowah addressed this foolishness urgently and demonstrably, with words so raw and tough, there would be no mistaking them. Got it? Got any more questions? No, I can tell you based upon what we continue to learn, that if you have any association with anyone who is continuing to mislead about God, his name is Yahowah, his chosen one is Dod. The fact that God is opposed to religions and particularly hates Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, or that you want to challenge Yahowah's choice at this time to work through his Nakar, observant foreigner, you're in serious jeopardy. Don't do it.
It would be highly ill-advised.
Highly, highly ill-advised. When someone is expressly called to speak for God, as I have been, as Moshe was, as Dod is, they know it and they can prove it, as is the case now with Yada. God said, whenever there exists a prophet and someone who proclaims an inspired message among you of Yahowah, I make it known to him, revealing and acknowledging the likes of Yada.
What was that?
Yada Yahowah. I divulge and I recognize Yada, providing familiarity and understanding by communicating through visual imagery and verbal content in a revealing way. Maraya. A phenomenal vision with spectacular apprehension through audible and tangible expressions, through sight to perceive. It's a compound of ma, to ponder the implications of ra'ah, that which can be seen, witnessed, and observed to him. I constantly speak in a way that delivers the result. I communicate words with him through a series of thoughts and images in a receptive state of awareness, like opening a window for the passage of light. Shalom, communicating in an empowering, enlightening, edifying, and restful, contemplative state. Bob Midbar, In the Wilderness, Numbers 12:6.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful?
So I guess that answers the question, just who the hell do you think you are? Doesn't it?
I think
There's your answer right there, sir.
But the time that you asked me, who the hell do you think you are? And I
a little more politely.
I answered you the best. What I said is, I am Yada. I am a person who is coming to know about Yahowah and wants to share what I have learned. Is how I answered you.
Yes.
And now we know that there is so much to it. Whenever there is, Haya exists, a prophet or someone who proclaims an inspired message among you of Yahowah, I make Yada known. I make it known to him, and I reveal and acknowledge the likes of Yada.
Oh.
I know because God revealed it to me. And he revealed it to me in texts that now are 2,500 to 3,500 years old, that I show you in books like these. I take the time to show you exactly where and how Yahowah acknowledged Yada, so that you might know and understand, so that you might choose to listen, to pay attention, and to respond. Yes, indeed. When God chooses to speak through someone, he makes that person aware that he has done so. And then he proves the point.
And then confirms it twice. So if you're out there trying to translate and you think you know, i.e. Yada, and you're not Yada, it's a big problem. Very big problem.
Those that God chooses do not seek him. He seeks them. You cannot choose God before he chooses you. And there are certain missions that are vital importance to Yahowah. And the process that he goes about choosing the likes of Abraham and Sarah, of David, of Moshe, and now of Yada, are exemplary. They all have very common threads that run through them. And those individuals know exactly who they are. And you should know who they are too, because God speaks vociferously about them. I make it known to him, revealing and acknowledging Yada. And should you wonder why Yahowah would mention Yada here 3,400 years ago? The fact of the matter is, he gave up on his people. He withdrew from them because they shooed him away. They disrespected him. And so Yahowah is telling you that he has a plan to restore the relationship before it's too late. And that restoration of the relationship is going to be through Yada, one who has finally come to know, acknowledge, and is familiar with Yahowah. And then God goes on to explain the various ways that he's going to communicate with this individual. Mara'ah, through verbal content and visual imagery conveyed in a very revealing way. From ma, to ponder the implications of ra'ah, what can be observed, witnessed, and seen to him. That means that in my case, Yahowah was going to say, here are the Torah, prophets, and Psalms as I have conveyed them through my witnesses. You're going to actually see them for what they are. You're going to, Yada, know what I said and understand what I have chosen to convey through them. And therefore, I'm going to speak to you through these words, Debar, and through a series of thoughts and images, through a receptive state of awareness, like opening a window for the passage of light. So it's worth repeating, when a person has been chosen to speak for God, they know it, and they can prove it, and they are certain of it. Even better, they have proof of it directly from Yahowah.
Oh, hey, do the rabbis have that kind of proof?
No.
Do the Christians?
No.
How about the Muslims?
No.
Okay. Just checking.
But the most profound prophecies, really in the entirety of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, speak of this individual, actually of two men. One is the greater luminary, our king, the chosen one, Dode, and the one who will reflect his light, and the role that they play together in resolving this fractured family. So the reason I addressed those who speak for God instead of just prophets is because not all Nabiim are the same. Some communicate everlasting truth to teach and guide, like Moshe. He said relatively little about the future. I don't know if you know that or not, but he was focused on what God had conveyed in the past, done in the past, and what he was doing at that moment. Others are concerned about what will occur millennia thereafter, like Yoel, like Yashaya, like Zechariah. Some reveal what has been previously unknown, like Zechariah, and paint an entire spectrum of time like Isaiah. Most prophets stand upon the shoulders of their predecessors and build upon the foundation that God has laid. And there are those whose novel revelations come by way of making sense of and of sharing the amalgamation of these previous insights. Now, prophets are prophets because of what God reveals through them. His words and his prophetic revelations are their most salient credentials. Now, this means that if a prophet's testimony differs from God's word, or if there is an alternative variation of his shem or persona in the text, the pretender is lying. Now, Moshe was called the greatest of the prophets by Yahowah. And while the text of a prophet is that what they say about what happened in the past and what's going to happen in the future and what God is conveying is always right, it ends up that way. Doesn't always exist that way through every moment. In other words, the prophet does have the opportunity to refine what they have come to know as they've come to know more about God. Let me give you an example. There is no questioning Moshe's credentials as a Nabi of Yahowah. Did everything that Moshe say, was it right and true?
No.
No, it was not. For example, Moshe in the 11th chapter says things to God that just flat out are not true. Now he would have a chance to correct the record. Moshe's last official act in leading the children of Israel back to the promised land was when he struck the crag that Yahweh asked him to speak to bring forth water. He said things and did things he should not have done along the way. Every time that he was confronted by the children of Israel, he had a different response than I have. Mine is to sharpen my horns, to charge full speed ahead. I never cower.
No.
I don't even flinch. Moshe did. So while we have the test of a prophet, and that prophets are consistently right about God, it doesn't mean that every moment of everything that they do in their lives is like a robot. Well, even a robot today, they run on artificial intelligence and they're wrong more than they're right. But we all, even Dode, what I think Dode is the most insightful of all the prophets, although I really have a partiality for Yahowah. But Dode was an exceedingly revealing prophet. And yet Dode did and said things along his life's way that were not accurate. I have rewritten all of my books as I learned more. And I was not asked to share these programs until my understanding of Yahweh had finally reached a point where it was complete enough to speak to you in this way, comprehensive and correct. On what this means, as uncomfortable as I am in saying it, and it's really the last threshold that I've had to try to climb, because there, with more responsibility, is it's just a greater burden. Is that Yada, like Moshe and Dode, speaks for God as a prophet. And that is a burden that I would never, ever, ever have wanted. But when you look at Israel's response to those who have served Yahweh as a Nabi, it is consistently horrendous.
Yep.
They have fared no better than Yahweh himself, no better than Moshe, no better than Dode, no better than Yahowah. In fact, it became so enormously horrible for Moshe and for Yahowah. We have these two snippets that in their lives. When Moshe had his meltdown in the previous chapter, chapter 11 of Numbers, and he's saying that, this job is impossible. I don't want to do it anymore. You just might as well kill me. Yahweh provides the answer. First of all, he gets 70 men who wouldn't say anything on behalf of God. They're not prophets in that regard, but they shouldered some of the burden of the people. And then there emerge these two people, Dode, God's beloved, the Dode of Yahweh, and my Dode, this individual that would support and reflect Dode's light. And they were filled with the Spirit. And Moshe, when he was told about them, immediately recognized, no, this is wonderful. This is the answer. Wouldn't it be wonderful if all of us could speak this way and do these things? And so he saw the answer and he celebrated it. The same thing is true with Elia. When he was taken to heaven and shown the result of his work, and there was no one standing outside the door, and he had not managed to convince a single person to embrace the covenant relationship with Yahweh through all of his prophecies, he hadn't convinced a single Jew to stop being religious and engage in the relationship. He was devastated, and God picked him up and said, it's not your fault. They haven't rejected you. They've rejected me, but I'm going to show you what's ultimately going to happen, because what you're doing here is you're writing a textbook on how to live as the Choter, how to fulfill the mission of the Choter, how to be the Nakar, the subservient foreigner. and you are demonstrating exactly who he is and how he is going to perform in the end. And I want you to know that he is taking. There will be a man who will take what he learns from you and will explain your prophetic testimony in a way that will cause a prolific harvest at Shabuah and a wonderful gleaning on Towrah and a grand celebration and homecoming as the sacrifice of the red heifer. And when Yahweh was compassionate enough towards Yahowah to show him these things, he just blossomed. And when he saw the final Zeroah, he said, "That's my Zeroah.
Yeah,
That's my guy, man. He's he's harvesting this these in gatherings based upon what we have accomplished and conveyed together." And he said, in fact, it's so much excitement for Yahowah. He said, he's right there now in this wine vat with me. We're getting bloody red together. And, he is the one that I'm telling you about who's going to save many. And it's not just because of what he does, but because of what we are communicating together to God's people. He embraced this role as if it were an extension of himself. So this is where we are. And in that regard, in fact, we even find in Yahowah 56, God refers to the Nakar as his son. So there's a second person that Yahweh calls his son, Dod, who's his firstborn. And then there's the Nakar. And he not only calls the Nakar his son, but in the next statement, he speaks of the offspring, the sons and daughters, the children of the Nakar, those who come into the covenant family because of this work that collaboratively Dod and Moshe and Yahowah all contribute by being receptive to Yahweh and speaking on behalf of Yahweh. Because of the collaborative effort, there are many children that come into the covenant family because we've all worked together in a line of progression to accomplish this result. And he speaks of the fact that the bonds of between he and those who have come to be part of the covenant family through this collaborative effort that is in the end communicated through the Nakar is enduring and steadfast and marvelously empowering. It's just a beautiful portrait of what God is accomplishing. So when someone speaks for Yahweh, it's obvious to those who Yada Yahowah. If you Yada Yahowah, you know who is speaking for Yahweh. And that is why there are no disputes on what belongs in Yahweh's Torah, prophets, and Psalms. It is why one of the many things that to differentiate the Talmud, the New Testament, and Quran from the inspired writings that Yahweh has conveyed through his prophets. Yahweh has a test, and we are diligent in applying it. So this is God's story. We told so many interesting stories pertaining to it, as we typically do when Leah is here, because I enjoy Leah's input so much that we didn't make it very far through the text of
That's okay.
of Numbers 11, but we learned a lot in the process. And so we're going to conclude this program at this point. And I thank you very much for listening, and for those of you who participate in the chat room of this program. Boy, last night, 325 comments and messages, and so many of them profound and building upon the message that God was conveying. So I thank you for doing that. Thank you for being part of his family. In Yeshaya 56, something that will be part of this Chakmah Choter program going forward, you're going to see how much God values those who are empowering and enabling the work of the Nakar. God says a great deal about us as a team and as a family. So, signing off here from our beautiful enclave overlooking the Caribbean Sea.
It looks like a great beach day, huh?
Yes, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous, beautiful day here. And thank you for listening. This has been an episode of the YAHOWAH blog, and I am Yada. YAHOWAH's Nakar, Craig Winn.
Shabbat Shalom.